Hey, John, we don't have any sound on our end.
You don't have any at all yet?
Oh, now we do.
Yeah,
Now
I
we
just
do.
turned everything on. We're like 2 minutes late. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. Your mic is hot. We're going to get this meeting going.
Mic is hot.
Okay, here we go. Just real quick. Woo, I just getting everybody's attention. Sorry about that. So, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight on a lovely windy night in May. Welcome you to the May meeting of the Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee. I'm the chair, John Davey, Vice Chair Tim White, Vice Chair John Raslier, Vice Chair Brooke Washburn is with us remotely, and we have our Environmental Standing Committee Chair, George Steed, is remote tonight as well. Unfortunately, tonight, Bill Jamaica, our Transportation Standing Committee Chair, he's under the weather, and he's, he could use some good thoughts today because he's not comfortable right now. So we're going to cover for him tonight and the material that he has that he had shared with us, and we'll throw it on the screen when we get to it. But I wanted to begin by welcoming everybody tonight. The first thing we do at our meetings is, as we get going, we have a few of the microphones around for the people online and Zoom for our meeting recording. If you're going to ask a question, you have some comments, grab one of these. There's a few floating around. You push the button, it turns green. Everybody online can hear you. You have to have a big voice in the room. So now we're going. So the first thing we do is we call the meeting in order, which we've done, and the adoption of the meeting agenda. If there's no objection from officers.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, then we're meeting agenda is adopted. Public comment. So this is a time for anybody who has a public comment about items that are not on our agenda. If you have comments about things that are on our agenda, we ask you to hold on to those until we get to that topic. So we'll start with the room first. Is there any public comment for things that are not on our agenda tonight in the room? All right, making it easy for us. Then I will turn to online. And I know that Bob Williams has his hands up. Bob, you ready?
I am ready.
All right, I'm gonna turn the volume up while you talk. Go ahead.
Okay, I regret that I cannot be here with you again. I feel after 2 years of being on that side of the aisle, now as a planning commissioner, I kind of understand what it's like to be on the other side a bit. But I'm basically calling in to let you know, as a planning commissioner, that I'm very concerned and interested in being and remaining engaged with what this committee does. I periodically, at your invitation, I'll be happy to speak and give updates as we move forward in the future. But one of the tasks that I was assigned by my supervisor Turnbull was to really try to get a handle on all the various development proposals that exist in El Dorado Hills and actually throughout its district, but especially in El Dorado Hills. And I want to thank APAC for making it my job so much easier for me, because quite frankly, maneuvering the APAC site is sometimes much easier than trying to maneuver county's own site, even as a planning commissioner. But one of the things that certainly the quick and dirty snapshot I've been able to take over the last several weeks, it really kind of highlights the amount of activity that really is focused on, and we will have to address over the next months to come. In housing alone, at various stages of review, whether or not it be conceptual or to the point where they actually have environmental impact drafts out there for review, we have 11,830 residences now being promoted for El Dorado Hills. That's 11,830. Contrast that with the current plans with DOT and their plans for future roads here, and their plans basically looking at 711 residences over the next several years. I think it really behooves us all to try to help DOT and help the planning department and help ourselves as residents to really address any kind of a seeming misalignment that might exist so we might be able to really understand what the reality of our needs really are. So appropriate tip fees can be set, or appropriate schedules can be laid out for the kind of infrastructure that will be required to even address even a portion of the 11,830 proposed homes. So I guess my message to everybody is I may not be there uh, on the front lines with you, but I am here to work with you. The other thing I wanted to bring up too, as far as disclosure, is yesterday, John Davies and George Steed and Bill Jamaica, Bill remotely, and I sat in a meeting with Karen Gardner and Raphael and his staff to discuss and continue a new quarterly review of activities. One of the things that came out of yesterday's meeting, though, and something that's pertinent to the most recent set of studies that APAC made on Gateway, is that the fact that the earlier, uh, and I'm sure, John, you'll probably want to address that, or George will, but the letters we sent out in June were really not looked at by either DOT or planning, because they indicated that they just didn't have the staff time to look at our rather extensive a set of questions, concerns, and comments. So basically, up to this stage, a lot of decisions have been made, even though they were in possession and they acknowledged having possession of those studies. They haven't reacted to it. My hope is that going forward, we can make sure that those reviews and studies are taken seriously as a genuine, well-searched and researched activities. But I want to let everybody know what the status was on those past studies and why there was a disconnect, why there was no follow-up, because nothing was done, basically. With that, I want to thank everybody again for having the opportunity to serve El Dorado Hills in my new capacity. With that, I'll return the meeting back to you, John. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Bob. And yeah, so we're light now. Bob did a lot of work. Now he's doing a lot of work at the county level. But Bob's correct. We did submit a letter. It was in June of last year with some concerns and questions. It was extensive and kind of wide ranging, and we did not receive a response. And I think we prompted to try to get a response a couple times, and we didn't. And yesterday, DOT staff just basically said, "Hey, we looked at that letter. Later, it ended up on somebody's desk, and we're not going to name names, but it ended up on somebody's desk, and they looked at it, and they started looking at what it would take to address all the concerns we had. They said it'd be about 80 to 88 hours worth of staff time to go through it and answer the questions. So our hope is those questions are still getting addressed in the course of the project review, but obviously we didn't get the answers that we were looking for at that time. And so it was even to the point, it's like, hey, we don't even have a billing code that we can assign that, that work product to when you submit the question. So I'm hoping they're looking for a methodology to do that going forward. But the most we can do is, submit the questions and try to be consistent. And, we want to be fair when we review projects. You don't have to love a project, or maybe you're in love with the project, but we want to be neutral when we approach our reviews. Those were genuine questions the community had. So I was happy to hear that they did see it. Disappointed that, obviously they couldn't address it at the time when we submitted it. So, but moving forward, as the project moves forward, I know that they're aware of our concerns. So fingers crossed that we start getting some feedback on other projects. And they acknowledge that, engagement with APAC is a benefit to the process with planners and with staff. And I don't, a lot of people think it's an adversarial sort of relationship. And, a lot of those people still live here with us, and we want them to do a good job, and we want to benefit from the good job they're doing. So if we can be helpful to them, we'll be helpful to them. So, but thank you, Bob, for doing that. And then just a reminder, we've been very engaged with several planning commissioners over many years. Mostly the fellow who's in Texas right now. He was a very good advocate for APAC and very respectful listening to us. He would tell us when he thought we were wrong, but he was very engaged with us and with discussion. Commissioner Nevis, prior Commissioner James Williams, Chris Payne, prior Commissioner. Bob's here now. Well, we have good relationships and discussions. So I'm glad that Bob is still engaged with us here. I know it's an overwhelming task what he's got in front of him. Thank you for doing it, Bob. And with that, I'll move forward. Tara, I see your hands up. What do you have in way of a public comment for us?
Oh, okay. So just wanted to chime in here a little bit. It's been a lot of discussion on we do have a lot of projects coming and a lot of commenting on them, but I think a lot of people are recognizing that these projects, I want to really highlight that many projects in the past have come out without being conditioned, minimally conditioned, or even conditioned prior to the project approval. Now, I met with county staff on that maybe 6-7 years ago, and things changed around a little bit, and then they went almost back to the same way that it was going, or they weren't conditioning these projects, and maybe minimal conditions, such that critical infrastructure for these projects isn't even addressed or can even be designed before the project's approved. So I just want to bring this up because as we go through reviews that maybe we engage county staff again to talk about how that is in the public's best interest and the decision makers' best interest to make sure that these projects are conditioned and that the design is such that it gives enough information so that decision makers can make and the public can make a review of that. So yeah, with that, I just want to emphasize that we have projects that were the other aspect of that is we get projects that enter into development agreements, and these development agreements will have a kind of vague language, or it'll be missing. The language will be missing the second component or a carry-on component. So we had something similar happen to our HOA, where these development agreements are passed on to the HOAs. And it's like many people have said, we don't have the resources or the bandwidth to regulate, to oversee, to, and granted, there's a lot of smart people on the boards, but it's still these kind of county policies and regulatory type actions getting passed on to HOAs, they just don't happen. For instance, the drainage. A lot of these hills, El Dorado Hills, we have drainage built into the developments. A lot of in our development, a lot of drainage has gotten buried over. There's no tracking. There's no, something like that is very significant when you get a homeowner flooded out, or they have soil issues. We lost a retaining wall at one point. Things like that happen. So just want to emphasize, and thank you for listening, conditioning as well as not passing on unrealistic development agreement issues to the residents, to the board, to the HOA boards.
Well, thank you, Tara. And Tara is one of the primary people right now looking at our review when we're talking about generations at Green Valley. She was very consistent in her analysis of the Dixon Ranch project, so has a lot of history with that area, with that specific parcel, what was proposed before. So we're glad that we have a volunteer that is committed to studying and helping us with that review, because as we're talking tonight, we'll talk about as of next Wednesday, we'll have about 10,000 pages to review for just 2 projects in 75 days. So thank you, Tara, for the comments tonight. And it is a consistent question, about when you have a 20-year development project, at the upfront part of it, most of the staff's still around, the residents are still here, and they kind of remember what it was. But the institutional memory, when you get into like year 12, year 15, Serrano was a 20-year development agreement, and they're still building. It's 40 years, essentially 40 years later. So the memory, the institutional memory, the intent of what the COAs were, what they were, or the agreements, sometimes they become a little clouded. So That's one of the things that we look at. We want to just make sure that we're consistent with people who are applying for projects, as we want their projects to be good in our community, but we also want to make sure that all the commitments are met. So thanks for reminding us on that, Tara. So if there's no more comments online, no hands up. It's hard to drive and talk at the same time, so I'm going to grab this and throw, where is it? There it is. Sorry, I'll throw this on the screen and then we'll get moving. So we moved this to the beginning of our meeting so we could talk about it so it didn't get lost. How do you become a voting member of APAC? So if you live in El Dorado Hills, you're already a member of APAC. You want to be a voting member, you work on a project review, a subcommittee. We haven't done ad hocs in a while, but you work on a committee, review a project. We want you to become a voting member. Voting members provide a vote of support or opposition to our findings that we submit to on projects to county agencies. And then you also get to vote for the yahoos who sit up here. So, and if I get somebody mad, maybe I can be in the audience next year. So that's how you get to be a voting member of APAC. And we genuinely it's a hard push tonight. We have a lot to review. So we'll keep asking people, if there's something, it might be something minor you want to talk about, the biological impacts on a specific project. We want that. We want that help. So there we go. So moving ahead, the next item, we have supervisor communications. I know Supervisor Turnbull is remote. I guess we'll be consistent, start in the room. John, are you ready to sing and dance?
Since we had the community council meeting on Monday, there isn't a lot that's changed, but I will just note that there's a new wireless communication tower being proposed in El Dorado Hills. It's a T-Mobile new bell cell tower. It's at St. Stephen's Church, and what they're doing is proposing conditional use permit to basically remove the existing steeple on the rooftop of the church and erect a new freestanding bell tower structure with antennas fully concealed from public view. So one more project to review relative to cellular communications, but that's the only thing that's happened since Monday. So I'm going to just keep it short.
And we don't have it, but I know that we've talked about before, there's a cell tower project in essentially close to Heritage that will be coming to the Planning Commission, I believe in June. And there's one on Malcolm Dixon that's been on the news. So I'm trying to remember what comments we provided for that. It's been a while. I'd have to go back and read what we said.
Well, the formal protest on that has been submitted to the Board of Supervisors.
So the cell towers are a challenge in that the FCC regulates a lot of that, and there's a very narrow approach that a local municipality, whether it's county or city, can take in terms of how they approve or deny a project. There's a new cell tower that was added on right above us, well, behind us, a few years ago, but that also enhances the fire department's ability, their equipment here, but it also benefits the community in that it's an existing tower. You're not seeing a second tower put up someplace else, and it adds capacity to the network. So those are hard ones to get past. Oh,
what church is that?
St. Stephen's.
It's right off, what is it, Warren? I think it's.
El Dorado Hills Boulevard, right down here.
Right.
So.
Owen.
Olson?
Olson.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, it's a busy week. I was here with John on Monday. I was at planning with a bunch of fellows yesterday, and then I had CSD last night. We're here tonight. We'll be at the CSD tomorrow night. So lots of shows to go to. So we're moving along, and I got to find George on my list. Sorry. I got to find George so I can, let's go. Where are you, George? Let me stop the share so I can see what I'm doing. Oh, there he is. Now I can get you. I'm sorry, George. That took me forever to navigate this thing. George, it's good to hear from you, even virtually tonight.
Okay. All right. Good. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, good. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot going on since we had that meeting on Monday, like John said. So, but there's a lot of things coming down the pipe, and thank you for joining me with that meeting yesterday. I think it was good that we had with Karen Gardner and Raphael and the engineers. So I think it was good. One of the biggest things I want to try to work on is the zoning matrix. And I talked a little bit to Raphael today and Karen. So I think that's some of the things that I want to try to get done, because that was supposed to, that zoning matrix should have been done a year ago. We talked about it, especially when that thing with Amazon. So we need to work on that to solve that problem so we don't have these problems anymore. So anyway, that's pretty much it for right now.
All right, well, feel free to raise your hand as we proceed tonight, and thank you for attending even virtually. I appreciate it, George.
Hey, you're welcome. You're
All
welcome.
right. So, well, that was quick. I should ask for any questions for Supervisor Heidel on the one item you mentioned tonight, or? Okay. So, so we're moving on to our projects. So we have this slotted every month. We have two standing committees. We have a transportation standing committee, and we have an environmental standing committee. Bill is unable to be with us tonight, but we do want to identify the people who are working on this. Mr. Reslier is part of this effort. Roger here in our audience is part of this effort. And we have other residents, Matt and Jeff Lewis, and obviously Bill. And so we're going to try and cover what he has sent in. You're going to help me, right? Just in case I get something wrong. Okay. And then George Steed he's virtual as well. We could ask George to chime in if there's anything that we need to address. So we provide this opportunity every month. We don't expect a work product from these standing committees every month, but there are updates. We want to allow the time for them to provide it because they're putting in a lot of work. It's like, it's like I will look at my email. It's like, hey, all this stuff's done. That's great. But it is a lot of work. We need to recognize that these people are volunteering to do this. It's their time and they're very engaged. The major updates that Bill wanted to address tonight was, and we've talked about it here, we had county staff come out from DOT, the El Dorado Hills Boulevard, Latrobe Road interchange at Highway 50. They made their presentation. Essentially, there's some improvements for capacity, adding a northbound through lane. We're hoping some safety improvements. I'm sure you have something to say when we get to it. But the traffic committee scheduled a meeting with DOT. DOT presented what the plan looks like right now, and it's a 30% plan. The highway interchange projects received a lot of funding recently, so that this was something we thought might take longer, and apparently now it's going to be much faster. Yeah. So there's, as described here, there are significant safety enhancements already built into the plan. We're looking for more. The traffic committee made 4 recommendations to address the pedestrian and bicycle safety, and bicycle is a critical one because that off-ramp, the eastbound off-ramp onto El Dorado Hills Boulevard, when you circle around, pedestrians and bicyclists have to cross the off-ramp to get further north. So what's designed, when we saw that initial design, I think there were a lot of questions. It didn't look like it was quite adequate, or maybe there were some opportunities for some improvements. So now they have some funding, perhaps some other designs can be entertained. But DOT has to work with Caltrans on the plan to incorporate the suggestions that our transportation committee is providing to DOT. And then they're going to target July 24th to schedule another review meeting for that committee to look at. I'm going too far forward. What am I missing on this? And grab that. What bicycle and pedestrians concerns? Because you identified a lot of them when they were here.
Well,
Not prepared. That's fine.
I had shown and you can't see it from there. I showed the people in DOT this picture that was taken 17 years ago at exactly this spot, talking about the same problems. And guess what? Nothing has been done in 17 years. Okay. They thought it was funny that they saw me a little younger and some of the people that they work with a little younger. What DOT has done is they've sent in their plans to Caltrans, and I'm going to ask a little later for Jeff Lewis to explain how that works with Caltrans. But I explained, they had said to me, well, we haven't had many accidents and we haven't seen many people using that section of the road that starts at the end of town center and goes under 50. And I said, well, that's a good thing because it shows that people have enough of sense not to go on there. It's such a dangerous place to be. So what they've done is they've added, if you can picture this in your mind, and I wish we would have had something to show up on the screen, starting on Latrobe, maybe 100 feet after the entrance to town center, they're going to add another lane, and there's going to be a wall. And that wall, that would only be, I think, what, about 4 feet high, 5 feet high, would separate bicycle riders and pedestrians from the traffic on Latrobe. And that road now, that wall would go down, would go under Highway 50, and then approach where was it 76, the station on the corner. So basically, you will have an extra lane for people and pedestrians. They would be protected because of this wall. They wanted, you know, you have an on-ramp and you have an off-ramp. On the on-ramp to 50, they want to put flashing red lights to warn people, to warn the drivers that there's a bike approaching, or we press the button that we're approaching. And coming off now, here's the problem. They wanted to put flashing lights, and I said, well, no one would really stop at that. So we asked the people that were there, we asked that they put an actual a stoplight there at the end of the off-ramp coming off, just stop the traffic if there are people walking there, if there are people on a bicycle.
Latrobe going south exit?
Yeah, you're coming down into
Eastbound.
Latrobe.
So not going towards Raleigh, going south?
No, that would take you north. It
Yeah.
goes around
Sorry,
and
I
then
was
north.
trying to figure out which intersection you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah,
And,
can I ask a quick question though? Because right now, because I take that route a lot, and so there's the sidewalk that goes under, but it's only on the side that the 76 station and the town center entrance is.
Yeah.
There's no sidewalk on the opposite side, but if you are legally riding your bike, you technically have to ride on the side with no sidewalk. So are they gonna do a two-way?
Like this.
they're going to add another sidewalk or another
Is it Bob?
another class
Okay,
one
This
bike
bus
and
people have a cell
pedestrian
phone.
lane. We would, the bike riders and the
Okay,
pedestrians would
well,
have
that's
to
smart.
share it. Okay, so picture a wall, picture now a bike
Yes,
and a pedestrian way
but why am I?
that would now go under 50.
Only on one side,
Huh?
only on the east side.
Yeah, we're only
one
talking
side.
on that one side.
That's what she was
I could
asking.
talk about the other side, but
Yeah.
just on that one side. So the other thing that we asked, we asked for the stoplight coming off of 50. We also asked that the bike lane and the pedestrian lane should be painted green so that it would stand out to motorists and it would stand out to the bike and the pedestrian people. And we liked the idea of the wall, which was a good idea because it would protect us. And so what happens now is, and I think Jeff, who's our retired traffic engineer, what'll happen now is what we asked for, the stoplight and the painting of the green on the path, would now be presented to Caltrans, and Caltrans will now look at it and then come back. Now there's a sequence that has to go there that I really didn't understand, and I'm going to ask Jeff to explain that to us.
Can you hear?
It's just for online, yeah.
Yeah, the point on the submittal of the plans, what we heard was that the county has currently made a 30% submittal to Caltrans, and that in the current process of development of the project, there's a 30%, 60%, 90%, eventually lead to the PSC to get advertised. So we had originally thought that with the submittal being made to Caltrans.
We can't hear you.
Is it green?
Green.
There you
Okay.
go.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We had risen, getting back to the 30, 60, 90% submittal, which is one of the standards that Caltrans has in their, for all the local agency projects that affect the state system, is that we did not, here, as far as our group, we didn't necessarily know that when the county made the submittal to the Caltrans about what percentage it was. So the idea is when you hear a 30% submittal, the way to think about it is conceptually, a number of the ideas are more pen and paper, but it gives you a start in the sand where the project is heading, understanding that in future months, like John had up on the slide showing the next submittal is July 24th. So that would probably be, I'd be guessing, assuming that would be either 60% submittal, and then eventually leading to the 90% submittal, et cetera, leading to eventual advertisement of the project, et cetera. So the thing to keep in mind that conceptually, there's already the sticks and drawings that's identified to meet current standards and guidelines. And as the design progresses, that I say that with a 30% plan, that there's still various things that can shift depending upon what everybody would like to see. And that was the effort by our group to meet with the county to help bring up issues, specifically getting back to what John Rasser mentioned here regarding the wall, which here I would call it a barrier myself. It's probably a 2 to 3 foot barrier that would help separate the moving traffic along with what you call the shared pedestrian
Yes,
bicycle,
a shared pedestrian
which
bike.
is a class 2 under.
It would probably be then a class 1.
Yeah, so there's different classes that Caltrans work with the cities and locals that need to be addressed. And from our understanding, this current design has a shared bike pedestrian from East Town, or the town center entrance, all the way north to just past Saratoga Way. Okay?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, it's very valuable that we have residents like Jeff that, you know, helping us out with, you can leave it there, Jeff. We might ask you to sing and dance later, but it's very valuable in terms of his experience and helping us as we navigate these things that there are items we don't know about. Do you have one nearby, Linda? Oh, now you do.
Okay, so I was here when they did the plan proposal. If they only did it at 30%, does that mean the cost they estimated is also 30% of potentially what it's going to cost?
Here, I would say the 30% should be trying to form or run parallel with the current design based upon the budget as they identified for the project. And that as the project manager for the county, at least when I used to get involved in that kind of stuff, you try to run it so it's balancing where you have some add-ins, some add-outs, and hopefully it runs the same. And the reality is if something comes in that sort of busts the budget, and then it gets back to the county, maybe being able to identify additional funds to help get what would satisfy everybody, majority of people's concerns.
Okay, just curious. Okay, thank you.
But the thing to remember is it's 30%. So keeping in mind budget and scope, they should be running pretty parallel. It's like within by the next July.
Months, yeah.
Yeah, a couple months. Now sort of the time where you want to, well, look at you put your foot in the sand with a line, and now you're moving ahead. And as you get closer to the cliff, you need to be speaking up now if you want to see something that you don't presently would like to see for mitigation, et cetera.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. So what made me think of that is because now you mentioned a stoplight, which they didn't plan for before. But I recall the stoplight that got removed from Green Valley Road, and they were estimating about $1 million.
1.5.
Yeah, right. And so I'm sure that for the freeway exit, it's going to be more of a complex light just because of the nature of the area. So anyways, obviously something to keep an eye on as they change the plans is how much it changes the cost. So
I jump in. I don't think it's going to be only controlling the traffic coming off of 50. Okay? It's the ramp coming off of 50.
and you also have the on, which actually that's already a light, so that should be okay.
I don't think it's going to be as complex.
I don't know. I tend to make things very complex, so,
Nothing is simple.
Yeah.
Nothing is simple.
or easy.
That's
So, hey, Terry, you want to go ahead? Is it not asking?
Is George gonna jump in?
Yeah, we're getting, I'll see if George wants to contribute anything. Terry, did you have a question?
Am I unmuted? Okay, can you hear
There
me?
you are. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Has anybody seen the original Caltrans plans that do not have the free ramps, off ramp and on ramp there? It is the original project that does not include free ramps. You can get that by requesting it from Caltrans. Also, the county has a copy of it. The end of the project was changed. The free ramps were left in place with the discussion that would happen in the future. That's why you see that existing ramp, that old existing ramp still there. That is not a finished design. That was never intended to be the final result. I know I had the full set of plans on my desk for over 7 years. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Well, then I guess that's a question we can ask when we meet again. But I know that was it 2014 when I'm trying to remember when it was the last improvements, phase 1 for that interchange. It was
About that time.
Yeah,
It's been a long
so-
time.
Yeah, and what complicated that obviously is Saratoga Way and its proximity. The old Saratoga alignment was right up against the on and off ramp, so you'd leave from the Raley's parking lot and like you do now, and Saratoga was there and the on ramp was right there. So it's pretty complicated, I know, to get that squared away. And we're when you look at it, Park Drive goes through the Raley's parking lot to the back, but also you have to go on Saratoga and loop around to get to the rest of Park Drive. And then Saratoga technically goes behind Raley's right now. That's labeled on maps as Saratoga Way. So our challenges and a lot of things here is that when we plan things 40, 50 years ago, we built in these constraints to now when we need to expand, everything's right up against where we need to expand capacity, which is why I think we're talking about Country Club coming down and at one point through the Raley's parking lot or now over to Serrano Parkway. I mean, it's, when you build yourself a box, you gotta leave room for yourself. So I guess we can ask and see.
I want to answer Supervisor Heidol's question. The other side, if you're on a bike or a pedestrian, you have a traffic light that stops the traffic. So if you're on a bike, you're safe. When you cross over, that bike lane ends. And we asked them to stripe it out. It would be actually a class 3, probably a class 2 or a class 3 that goes under 50.
It's gonna be striped, it'll be class 2.
Yeah,
Otherwise it's-
and once you get on the other side of 50, there's another traffic light, so you're safe again. That would stop the traffic. You don't have the same problem on that side as you do on the other side, where you have an on and an off ramp without any control really at all. So and the other thing to keep in mind, as Jeff pointed out, Caltrans will take a look at what DOT gave them. They'll come back now in 2 or 3 weeks and take a look at it, and then they'll add what we had said. And now we're looking at another 3 or 4 weeks for Caltrans to look at it and to come back. So I had said to them, will I see it within my lifetime? I don't know. So they'll laugh if it's true. But it's been explained, and I think DOT is working on that, on that.
Yeah, and we're happy to have that engagement. And, our standing committee is very consistent about remaining engaged. And we've heard from Raphael that, he's very happy to have that. So we're hoping it's a collaborative effort as we keep going forward and getting that input in. So I'll move forward on the slides here. Here we go, that Bill had for us. Creekside Village. So, and I won't call on you tonight, George, here in the audience, but this is just a discussion about that. The traffic committee was invited by Wind Properties to look at the traffic study, had a meeting on April 12th. Our members found that it was a very complete and professional report, noted that the development will sort of, the word we've used is exacerbated some known issues. And so their input would be back to DOT that they need to work with the developer to address some specific things. The Golden Foothills Parkway and Robert J. Matthews Parkway Latrobe traffic flow, how that's working now. We know that there's a proposed roundabout on Golden Foothill. There's elements of this project that our members were looking at going, hey, we're concerned, we have some questions. What can you work with the developer to make it a better project for the community and for the developer? Also, the widening of Latrobe between Investment Boulevard and Royal Oaks. And then on this list, the next actions were that they're going to work with the developer to clarify the timing and triggers for signalization of Latrobe at Royal Oaks. And DOT is going to clarify the timing of adding Latrobe widening back into the capital improvement program. And I know last year when we were talking about Frontier, it did come up. There's two Latrobe widening projects. And last year that project came up and as a candidate to be added back to the CIP. It had been removed, I believe, a long time ago. And so our concern at that time is that the timing seemed not quite appropriate, like it was a race to get it in and to sort of be in conjunction with Frontier. We struggled with it at APAC saying, well, we'd like to comment on it. That's our comment. It's like, we're just concerned that the timing seems like it's being driven by the project and not maybe what the need is. What is the need? And I know the Planning Commission talked about it at length, and it was decided that they wouldn't add that back in. And so why we struggle with it is because if that's a need right now that we should be adding in, then we should be adding in. But if it's project driven, we were concerned it was there to facilitate the project and not to address the need, because obviously there's reimbursement agreements that we pay developers back for projects. So you put it in the 20-year timeline, it becomes more realistic in terms of what's going to happen with that project and how it could be funded, and how we start collecting money to get there. So we were concerned about that last year. We made our comment. Planning Commission, I think they recognized that. Raphael was at the meeting and said, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're going to hold off on this. But with the project we're talking about now, if there's a need now that we're identifying, and it's also going to be compounded with projects that are coming in, you want to start collecting that money so that you have the funds available to do something sooner rather than later if it's a need. So now, did I miss anything in terms of traffic? I know that Georgia, who's got their hands up? Okay, I'll go to Katie in a minute. But George, George Steed, I know you're online. Is there anything I missed there? You should be able to talk.
I think the biggest thing that came out of our discussion, when used cell phone data in determining the patterns as well as the number of cars and vehicles traveling through here. It was quite an extensive survey. And what I came away with, and I believe a number of other committee members, is in looking at these traffic patterns, it was quite clear that the expansion of John Adams Academy, while it was a ministerial approval of the use moving into those new buildings and expanding their campus, it had a huge impact on the traffic along Latrobe in that lower section. And it kind of caught Department of Transportation by surprise as well, because their model doesn't catch some of these things. Now they're in the process of updating their model, but it raises huge concerns amongst ourselves in the committees as to the adequacy of the tools of the county to be able to look at these impacts and anticipate these impacts before we get up against the wall here. And this is what WIN is looking at, is when they look at this traffic studies, they're having to ask themselves, what things do we have to modify in our development plan in order to accommodate the impact of this traffic? And I think that's a dangerous situation for the county to be in, and something that warrants much closer look and attention.
All right. Thank you, George. I know that, and I've heard it from many of the committee members, You know, it's not typical that we get the engagement that we've had on a development project. And George, thank you again for being available. We're already talking about when it's appropriate for them to come back and make some updates about Creekside. But to have that engagement, not just once, not just twice, but ongoing engagement, not just with APAC, but with other community groups in the area south of 50, it's not something that we see frequently. And I right now, I'll just say I appreciate the fact that that engagement's there. So when we want to make sure we foster that. So we have a couple questions online because they've been waiting. Katie Cleveland, you should be able to go ahead and unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
So I have a question, and I'm not sure now that if this is the appropriate time to be bringing this up. I live on Avanti, and I live on the straight side of Avanti. So, for all of us that live on Avanti, doubling that road, expanding that road, widening the road, is a big concern of ours. We didn't buy into that road being expanded so soon. That was in the 20-year plan. But my question is, I've heard rumor that there's going to be a light at Royal Oaks, that's the recommendation, and then pocket turns at the other end of Avanti, to help alleviate the congestion at Royal Oaks. But have we looked at, and does the traffic study include the impact that's going to have on Avanti? I mean, that's an exit only gate. That area isn't wide enough to have pocket lanes, to have people turning off of Latrobe left straight onto Avanti and going in that exit gate. I mean, how is that going to be managed? I mean, we already have problems with people do pull into there and park into an area that's a no parking zone. And there's been several near misses where people have almost had, pedestrians have almost been hit by cars. There's almost been, head-on collisions in that, because the expectation is that's a one-way, and it's a very narrow one-way that barely, it's going to fit barely 2 cars, maybe a car and a half. So how is that planned to be managed?
And offhand, I don't know the answer to that tonight, but George, do you have anything or?
Yeah, let me jump in a minute, because what is being discussed and looked at is not to modify the exit only at Avanti, but to add pocket lanes to ease the ability of people exiting on Avanti and merging into Latrobe, whether they go northbound or southbound. So it's looking to smooth the traffic exiting, not to add to another entrance onto Avanti there.
Well, people technically shouldn't be turning left off of Avanti onto Latrobe. I mean, technically that's a right turn only. I mean, it's a double yellow line. So if you take away that double yellow line, then that gives people more right of way to turn left off of Latrobe onto Avanti also.
Okay.
I have to take another look at the diagrams. You may be right that is, if that's right turn only, then it may be that what I'm confusing that with is the pocket lanes that are going to be added both ways at Royal Oaks, in addition to the signalizing.
There's no sign that says right turn only. There's no, there's no island or anything on Latrobe to stop you from doing it, but it is a double yellow line. So, I mean, people shouldn't be doing it. It's very dangerous to be doing it. People do fly down people do fly down that street, and it's blind. It's very hard to see, even if you're turning right off of Avanti onto Latrobe. It's very difficult to see around that bend a little bit.
Yeah, that was understood, and that was the concern that Wynn was looking at when they were looking at their traffic studies, and DOT brought that up as well. So I'll go back and take a look at that and make sure that my memory is correct. If it's right turn, I know that they weren't talking about changing any traffic directions. So.
Okay.
Thank you, George. And Katie, thank you for raising that for us, and don't let us forget.
I won't. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And So Monica has a question, then I'm going to check the room real quick. Monica, you should be able to unmute. Hi.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you so much for taking my call. So with Wynn clarifying the timing and the triggers for the signalization at Royal Oaks, I number one have a huge concern about there being a light there because I live 2 houses in. I know what the traffic's already like. And
I just asked, did you?
It's going to cause some serious concerns for clogging traffic up. I've already expressed my concerns about pollution, sound pollution, and all of that. I'm also noticing where they're putting their boxes, and I believe it's been told to me that it's DOT that's putting their boxes out there, perhaps testing the road, and where they have the boxes set up for sound and traffic, the sound is completely different when you get down to my end. So I find that interesting. It resonates a lot more down at my end. So it would almost be interesting to find out what the difference would be if we had it closer to me. The stoplight concerns me a lot because I already can hear the traffic going by, which is completely understandable. But you put a stoplight in there, all the traffic's going to be sitting there and getting ready to turn. There's going to be congestion. When I'm trying to get out of my gate, if I've got traffic coming down Royal Oaks and I have to sit and wait to get out of my gate, that's going to cause congestion. I don't even know how that could possibly fit into a usable plan. I've got serious concerns about cars just idling close to my home, the sound, the pollution, everything. So I would really be interested in finding out more about them. The time, from what I understand, that's zoned R&D, not residential. I feel we're moving forward as if it's going to be zoned for residential. So I'd really like clarifications.
Okay. Well, as the project moves forward, I know that that Wynn is committed to coming back and talking to us. So, oh, George, do you have something nearby? Didn't know you'd be doing this tonight. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, the George Carpenter Wynn Communities. I just wanted to address a couple things. Something that that Katie Cleveland brought up about the Avanti and Latrobe. We'll go back and put together a diagram of the geometry of that, and we can bring that back to APAC next month, or I can work through the traffic subcommittee and get it to Bill Jamaica and George Steed and the group, and that way we can at least get that for sure. And I don't have that information with me tonight. And then on the question that Monica raised about the traffic signal as being part of the Creekside Village project that we're proposing, there is already going to be a signal built there as part of the Heritage project that's currently under construction.
Other Heritage, right?
Yeah, so the project that is to the west of us is going to build a road across our property and connect to Latrobe and Royal Oaks and build a signal there as a condition of the 333rd building permit. So in all likelihood, the signal is going to be built before the Creekside Village project gets out of the ground.
So again, my concern is that light's going to be blinking into my bedroom window and several other neighbors' bedroom window. And cars are going to be idling and stopping at that light. And I don't know what happened to everybody who was so concerned about Amazon and the pollution and the sound and all the effects that it's going to have on us, and perhaps even our home values, which is a really big concern. But this traffic light and the idea of a commercial project going in across the street from me, this is a no-go for me. I want to know how I can have a little bit more of a voice before this turns into something that we have no voice over any longer, because I feel like if somebody could just come over to Royal Oaks and Avanti, you will understand completely what I'm talking about with the congestion that it's going to cause. It's already a problem with people trying to come home if 2 or 3 people are turning onto this road. There's really concerns.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing with us tonight. And I encourage you, we're not going to stop talking about it. And I know our committees are looking at this. So if you remain engaged with us, or if you want to submit questions, even if you can't attend a meeting, we'd appreciate that as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. We're here in this room now. Does anybody have any questions about what we talked about in terms of the traffic standing committee? Oh, you guys are making this part easy. We did want to update the one item here. This one's harder, but so the Gateway project, there was a meeting with PAC Trust to discuss the scope of the project and the alternatives. Gateway, obviously, it's there's 2 buildings under construction right now. We've seen marketing materials for 4 more warehouse type buildings.
More warehouse buildings. They just saw materials for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that distracted me. But we've seen those marketing materials, and PAC Trust had been here, I think it was August last year, and we talked about it. And when we looked at those marketing materials, that was sort of different than what we had discussed. So they do have a parcel split proposal in that will be reviewed, but the determination on the 2 buildings under construction now is that it was ministerial because it's a function of what was designed and allowed in the business park for not just in 1981 or 2 or whenever we did that approval was made, but 81, thank you. But also when it was the environmental documents were updated for the county and the general plan in 2015 to consider those things. So the challenge with the business park and the R&D zoning, when you look at the matrix of what's allowed in the R&D zoning, it's quite extensive. I mean, we have churches, schools, daycares, fitness centers, medical, dental, and primarily the reason that happened is because there was no adoption of the business park as they had intended back in the 80s. So we're 40 years out, and there still doesn't look to be a significant adoption for that business park, campus setting that everyone thought it was warranted back then. And so this project is, Wynn looked at it and made the determination, it's like, hey, if we can develop something here that meets a housing need, the owners of the property, was it DST originally? It was DST. They owned it forever, and they said, we're not expanding. We're not going to do anything with it. So in that area, Gateway is coming through. They had talked about a housing project as well. That did not work apparently. And so now they're going, well, we have a demand for the warehouse type function. So our initial look at it was we were concerned because the traffic study had suggested something, it's like 9 to 1 million square feet of warehousing space across many buildings. And the initial traffic study we saw apparently was wrong. So we were concerned with the traffic volume. So that meeting took place. District 1, District 2 supervisors there, Chamber of Commerce, Blackstone, Four Seasons, Heritage, HOAs, planning staff from DOT, and I believe you met the construction trailer. Was it crowded? Yeah.
It was pretty crowded.
So
big tables.
Okay. So what our traffic subcommittee has found out from DOT is that the reports were based that our reports that we generated for our initial look at this were based on incomplete and misleading data that was presented on the county website. So it was misleading, misunderstood. There won't be high velocity distribution. The traffic numbers provided by DOT as a full build out for the entire area, more than just the buildings we're talking about now. And the projections from PAC Trust show about 10% of the previous projections. So it's significantly different. And it's based off the ITE trip generation manual, which we asked the county to look at when Frontiers proposed, because they didn't consider, they were using their own numbers. The ITE manual said, no, it's significantly higher. So when we saw that they were using ITE for these numbers, the initial numbers, we thought it's like, well, that's got to be accurate. Apparently it was not. So Gateway right now, they're going for a review process to split those parcels, and it will be part of the planning department has to process it, and we'll have an opportunity to make comments, and that probably will be a zoning amendment. It might go to the planning commission, we don't know. PAC Trust has offered to work to minimize traffic impacts with lease provisions because these are spec buildings. They don't know who the tenant is, so they're going to try to work on that. And they're going to continue to engage the community on the future aspects of developments there.
Hey, John, can I ask a quick question on
Please
that?
do. Go ahead, bro.
So I guess going back to the comment earlier about the county not having the tools to necessarily foresee certain impacts, I know, or at least I thought, out there on Latrobe is the zoned high school area for a secondary school once we get to impact numbers. And just anticipating if they had such a problem with John Adams School, and that's a zoned area where they would have the largest high school maybe potentially built. Is there anything that the county is doing to anticipate those traffic impacts, like a long-term planning as part of these additional developments that are going in and the traffic impact reports?
I believe, the numbers that they presented to the board in terms of what the projected growth rates are for both residents and businesses, they considered what's in front of them. And we just talked about, Bob had mentioned at the beginning, what we talked about was proposed now is like 11,000 houses. What the county's planning on, it's like, well, we know we have these 700 to 800 houses that are planned and approved. So they consider that, but the discussion we had yesterday is that they wanted to remain flexible in terms of when a new project comes up and it's proposed, that yes, I got to look at it. The challenge with the schools is that it's a state function. I think the county's only, other than building code, the only real monitor the county has on those activities is the access point in and out of the property. So, yeah, the encroachment. So, and that's how we end up with 4 schools on Silver Valley Parkway.
But the answer to her question is yes, that's the Road to the West project. So if Brooke's not familiar with the Road to the West project, we need to brief her on it, because there's also a plan to do the other part of the loop, connect with Highway 50, longer term. That's associated with the Marble Valley development.
Yeah.
So there has been a holistic view of this. It's just not well understood.
Yeah, and because these are all in various stages of proposals. Correct. And so nothing at design yet, but there are considerations that have been made. And I know that George Steed's hand is up because George was part of these discussions. George, if you could educate us a bit more, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I just want to weigh in a minute on the gateway and the confusion over the numbers there. ITE manual breaks down traffic by a number of different, essentially, use codes. And what was applied by the DOT in the application was a generic industrial park number based on the square footage of the potential buildings. And that's what led to the count of 3,700 vehicles. It did not provide the additional breakdown of autos versus truck traffic. And that breakdown roughly came down to about 90 trucks versus 2,700 vehicles, depending on the hours of use and so on. What was presented by the applicant there, APAC Trust, was a detail for specifically warehousing. And he used his square footage at 450,000 square feet for a warehouse-only project. And those numbers were much different. They were much heavier with traffic, 270 daily trips of truck traffic versus 499 daily trips of auto vehicles. So the challenge for DOT, and I sympathize with them, but in looking at these, they've got to merge these different use codes, and the levels of ITE documentation don't recognize the mix of various traffic, various use codes that can be built in the business park. And that's where the challenge comes in looking and trying to assess what the traffic is. There is just not a good tool for being able to look at that mix of vehicles and the traffic with a wide variety of use types that can go into that R&D center.
Yeah, and because they don't have a specified tenant in its spec space, that that usage could be something different than we're thinking about, or it might be entirely consistent with what we're thinking about. But I'm glad that we have the opportunity for our committee to sit in that meeting to hear that live and in person. And I think that we have that our group is well read in on that now, and that there's going to be continuing engagement as this moves forward, so that at least we're learning about it and we can provide that input and remember, we're advisory only. So if we get the right information, we can provide the right feedback.
Right. So. The one other thing that I want to mention on Gateway that came up in the environmental report And a number of the environmental committee members are still very concerned about it. One was air pollution, of course. That always comes up with when you have heavier truck traffic than vehicle traffic. But the second was identifying specifically Indian sites on that particular parcel that's being subject to split. And that predated the actual formation of the business park. And as we know, the law regarding Indian relics and Indian sensitive sites has changed since that EIR was last done. And it requires tribal consultation on preserving those sites. And from the looks of some of that data, some of those sites could very well be affected by some of the development that PAC Trust is proposing. So I'm looking forward to working with planning and understanding and being able to review exactly what's impacted there and how we work through that with the applicant.
Thanks, George. Sean, you had.
So at that meeting on April 15th, the applicant's transportation engineer talked about the different scenarios and stuff. They also committed they would provide a written document that explains their assessment of what those traffic flows were for different type of uses. Warehouse use is one, but there's other things that warehouse space could be used for, right?
Yes.
So as I recall, he had 3 different examples depending upon how that space is used with different traffic levels. They committed to put that in writing and sending it to us. I have not seen it. So my question to George is anybody seen it? Because when I asked that of DOT today, they had not seen it yet either. So I think we need to go back, and I've already started that, to ask for them to deliver that documentation. Because somebody spewing information at a meeting is one thing. I want to read the documents myself, right? And we haven't gotten receipt of those yet that I know of.
John, I'll send that to you. We did receive that from Scott.
Okay,
it's a small tape.
Okay, thank
It's
you. All right.
It's a table of 3 different use types showing the breakdown. So I told Raphael yesterday in the meeting I would forward a copy to him as well.
Okay.
You know, George, you make sure that I get it in my office too.
But okay.
Yes, George.
I appreciate it because I haven't seen it either.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know that we talked about that a little bit yesterday, and I know we were
because
going to take a peek at it. So.
I want to update the fact sheet with that information, but I want to know it's coming from solid sources, people who are professionals in the field of study, and not somebody's opinion, right? But the way you do warehouses, and particularly in areas like R&D zones, there's a lot of variability what those uses can be. What the initial purchaser of the property is one thing. 2 years later can change ownership, and it totally changes. So you need to understand the full spectrum that could go into that.
I've rented many warehouse spaces in my prior career in logistics.
Yeah.
And we ended up with a customer that was into some light manufacturing. We had never anticipated that. And so now we have an additional 80 people in our 100,000 square foot warehouse. So things change. It might be approved for something now. A business will either grow or fail, move on, need bigger space, and then somebody else comes in to fill in behind them. It could be a roller skating rink. We don't know. It is spec space, and if it's an appropriate use in the zone, or if they can get a CUP for it after the fact, after it's constructed, that's what we end up looking at. So we need to get moving along. And George, I know that you didn't have anything really for tonight for the environmental, but you've already chimed in on it. Is there anything we've missed tonight in terms of maybe a status update that you think is pertinent to that's current? I haven't really heard that much. I think the focus has been primarily on the gateway and the other transportation type aspects. Is there anything else that you wanted to share tonight?
Well, only that we're looking forward to additional meetings with Wynn, talking and seeing what they're working at. And I have to say that's a great working relationship and understanding what's going in there. And then looking ahead to the rest of the agenda is quite overwhelming. So let's move ahead.
Okay, I hope everybody's ready. So, but I do want to recognize, Melinda's here tonight. Melinda has a lot of experience in analysis, right? She's been doing it here for a little while. yeah, not just locally, but other areas. So we appreciate Melinda's expertise. David's in here. It's just, we appreciate the amount of effort and time that everybody's committing to it. So, oh, real quick. As long as it's real quick.
It's going to be quick. So I've heard a few different times about some of the discussions going on with some of the developers, which is totally fine with me. I do have a suggestion though, because I also hear like we were supposed to get this document. Has anybody seen it? Maybe if there were notes or minutes taken that could be presented and tracked, then it would be something that could be delivered to a wider audience, because I'm still very interested in things occurring south of 50 because I'm a taxpayer and I live here. So just something to consider, to maybe have some actions or highlight points or something like that, and target dates or something, then that would be great.
Yeah, and that's our struggle. It's like I said earlier, it's like people are putting in a lot of time. I don't want them to expect there has to be a work product every month. And the updates are good, but when it's appropriate that we have something that is, okay, this is the document, yeah, and we have notes and that's appropriate to share, we'll put it on the website as well. So thank you for that good reminder. But I did want to thank the environmental committee for the work they're doing as well. And we're going to move along, and now we're going to get really busy. So next item here on the agenda in terms of projects, these are updates because we're not reviewing right now, but we should be elbow deep in it, and we're already a week behind. The Village of Marble Valley Specific Plan, which was proposed, technically it started in about 2012. There is a notice of preparation of a draft environmental impact report in 2013, and then a subsequent scoping meeting. I'll jump into this as we go through. And Marble Valley is primarily its property at the south end of Bass Lake Road, where Marble Valley Road begins on the south side of Highway 50. And it's a project for Serrano Associates. They've been working on it since 2012, 2014. But since that scoping meeting, we have had nothing. Most of the documents that were on the county website don't exist on the county website anymore, because we've had, I think, 3 or 4 different project tracking applications that have morphed over the years.
The website format totally changed too. And there were some unthinkings that happened. They were trying to repair it.
Well, not even that. I mean, prior to the, so I was looking so most of the documents we had on that we borrowed for the APAC website, we borrowed from the county website. Most of those documents don't exist on the county website anymore. So, but this is obviously moving forward. So the draft environmental impact report for this project, and I'll describe it. This is a land use map, just kind of it's hard to see here, but it'll be on our website. It is on our website. The draft, and that's sort of where it's at the end of Bass Lake Road, south of Highway 50. And it's a big project. The draft EIR was released publicly on Wednesday, May 1st. We have they have committed to a 60-day review period, and I know Tara raised some issues with me today that that's probably not enough. But by law, it's a minimum of 30 days, 60-day max, unless there are, what's the language? I'm going to go back to the California Code, unless they're thank you. Unusual circumstances. So there's no definition for unusual circumstances. Tara suggests that we should be asking for more. We will submit that request. But when I talked to the applicant the other day, they started at 60 days, which is the max. So we're talking about 5,000 pages of document that we need to review that we haven't looked at since 2014. So this is a heavy lift, and we're going to try to get as much in as we can and be responsive. I will say now that the applicant is going to be here next month. And our next month, we're talking about only this and the project after this we'll get to. So this is 3,200 dwelling units on just under 500,000 and just under 5,000 square feet of commercial use, 87 acres of public facility, 1,200 acres open space, 41 acres of agricultural use on about 2,400, about 2,400 acres overall for the site. The current zoning and the land use designation right now is low density residential because there was a project approved in 1998, or there were entitlements approved in 1998, and we'll tell you what those were. But this is the matrix of all the things that are going to change because they define sort of their own designations for land use in it. So it's part of the specific plan, and that specific plan gets adopted in the general plan. So the original scoping meeting was in March of 2013. looking for, to amend the previously approved Marble Valley Master Plan from 1998. The amendment changes, the county general plan, the land use map, adoption of a new specific plan, and obviously some significant rezoning. They'll also be looking at a development agreement with the county, financing plan, subsequent development permits, and entitlements, including the development plan and tentative maps required by law. These are the specifics in terms of the entitlements. The documents out, we should be looking at that, and we really don't have to worry about this right now. We need to look what's in front of us in terms of that draft EAR. But these are some of the elements that we look at in the draft EAR. That this is from 2013. Air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, when we talk about the historic artifacts type of things, geology, soils, greenhouse gas, hazardous materials, hydrology, water quality, land use planning, agriculture, noise, population, housing, public services, recreation, traffic circulation, and visual resources. So it's a lot to look at. The 1998 plan that was approved, 398 clustered residential lots, open space, and other public and private uses on with about 1,800 acres of open space. And they had talked about, back then, we had talked about the Marble Valley Cultural Center for sort of arts, and they were going to have a facility for stage, music, presentations. That's not part of the plan anymore. But this is a project that was approved back then. I was looking at the Business Journal from 2000. This is approved 98, and Strong Associates bought this property in 2000 because technically they were running out of custom home lots because they were getting absorbed so fast in Toronto. So the comment there was like, yeah, hey, it's already approved for 400 houses. We're looking for custom home lots, low density, and that was sort of the talk at the time. It's changed a bit. So from 2000 to 2013, the new plan's in place, and that's what we're talking about. So right now, if they wanted to, they have the entitlements for 399 clustered residential lots, but that's not what we're looking at. So, and then this is just elements of what was approved.
5 acre minimum residential will stay with a PD.
Yeah, a planned development.
That's what the 398.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So different from what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
So it's available for a 60-day public review period beginning on May 1st, and it's going to end on July 1st. Right now, we'll ask for more. Not sure that we'll get it. We'll ask. And when the draft environmental impact report considers only the environmental aspects of the project, and that's what we need to be commenting on. If you don't like the project, you can say you don't like it in your comments. The official response, which comes out the final, will say, okay, thank you for the comments. It'll be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission. This is not environmental in nature. Thanks. So we need to be focused on the environmental aspects of this when we write our questions, concerns, and comments and submit them. There's a specific address the county has set up. It's VMVSP, which is Village of Marble Valley Specific Plan. We have it on the website, edh.gov.us. Submitted comments and email must be included in the body of the message or as an attachment either in Microsoft Word or as a PDF. So if you have a long list or report, and you send it, here's my email, I want these comments submitted, provide those are your options. So on our website, these documents are large. We try to put PDF documents in a viewer that's on screen so you can just look at them. It does not work. So the draft environmental impact report itself is 768 pages long. It's an 88 megabyte PDF. That I think you can work in a viewer. It was very slow for me, so I just put a picture of the cover. You click the cover, you go and you can look the PDF on our website. Just there. The appendices are 3,955 pages long. I choked on it too. So this is what we're dealing with. I tried to put it on our website due to memory limits on our web server. The max document as a PDF we can upload is 100 megabytes. This is 114. I tried to reduce it. I got it down to 111. So we're linking to the county website, but you can go and get it there. So be prepared. It's heavy lifting to read and look at it. The applicants are going to be here to make a project presentation, talk about the draft EIR and some of what the project specifics are. And I got that phone call and they offered it immediately. How soon can we get there? I said, well, yesterday, but June is, that they wanted to make sure it was released on time because there's always a question about these documents. They set a date, they go, well, sometimes they miss them. So they wanted the document to be out and people to look at it before they came. And the challenge for us is that they're going to come to us in June and we're already have lost half our review time in terms of, so I'm talking with Tim, I'm reading this, the initial document, not the appendices yet. I'm reading this and I get to, page 200. I go, wait a minute. I see something. I think it's, I gotta go back. And that's how it works. So the best approach for this for us is that if you have a specific interest, a concern, please, by all means, read the whole thing. But if you have a specific concern and you want to focus on it, that would help us out if you want to contribute to our reports and our findings. So they're going to be here for that. I'm going to move into this next one because they're considering this essentially, they're going to present it to us as one big project. So,
well, that's what they want to do.
Yeah, I know.
I quite frankly, John and I had this discussion. I really would like to ask Kurt Bone from Serrano to separate it. Let's have one on Marble Valley and let's have a separate one if we even have to have a special meeting on Lime Rock. Between the two of them, it's almost 5,000 homes. It's undeveloped land, that's wild. There's going to be issues. They identified in the Marble Valley draft environmental impact report, they identified from comments that were made 11 years ago, in 2013 at the scoping meeting, areas of concern. And that doesn't change, does it? Water, traffic, wildfire, wildlife, schools. They've identified where the two school locations. They either propose 2 elementary schools or 1 elementary and 1, I was going to say junior high school, but middle school now. I know, I'm dating myself. But these things don't change. We will be here past midnight if we are going to have a good presentation and discussion on both projects. And I don't want to be here past midnight or getting close to that. So we really will ask Kurt if we could separate the two, because otherwise it's a disservice to the community. And it's really a disservice to these are 2 separate projects with different issues. Some of them are always the same issues, but there are different issues, and they should be treated separately.
Agreed. And I think the challenge from them was that they were concerned with the comment period overlapping half and half. If we're going to get to it right now, Lime Rock Valley, we expect that draft EIR to be next Wednesday. So 2 weeks apart, probably 5,000 pages on each project. July 1st for the first project is when we have to have comments in. We'll ask for more. And then I'll get to it. It would be the end of July for the second project. It is a challenge. And I did say, hey, we would love to have 2 discussions, but they're committed to having, they see it as because the project, well, we'll let them answer that when they're here, but they're seeing that the projects are so close together, they're essentially one. But, it's 2 documents and it's 2 projects. It's 2
Hey,
sets of
John,
documents.
but
Yes?
is there a slide that shows like the location of the projects?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. We got it coming up if you're ready for it.
I was just curious, like, what's the proximity to Cameron Park, and would this be something where we would work with that committee as well? Would they have?
Yeah, Supervisor Heidel asked that question. We were submitting copious comments on Central. John had observed, he goes, well, are you guys going to do the same work for Lime Rock? Because part of it's at Cameron Park. It's like, well, as you'll see tonight, we're talking about Cameron Park and Rescue because it's adjacent to El Dorado Hills. So, yeah. And I did talk to the DRC last year about it. I need to check back in with them, but they're an appointed committee by the Board of Supervisors. So I will check and see, I can't, they're subject to the Brown Act, so I could probably go to their committee chair and ask some questions, or maybe I'll go to their meeting. I used to go to their meetings when I had time. But it is a concern. And I'll let the applicant speak to that when they come in about the proximity of Cameron Park and services in Cameron Park, as opposed to facilities and services in El Dorado Hills, primarily the CSD. El Dorado Hills Fire has most of it, right? I'm sorry, Board President.
Yeah,
There's still some discussions
this-
going on.
yeah, so-
That's the plan.
Some determination. So,
My understanding is Cameron Park CSD has none of it.
That's what it says in the draft environmental impact
Yeah.
report, that
So
the
that's
CSD,
another,
they don't even address Cameron Park CSD. It's only addressed with El Dorado Hills CSD.
right.
And for Marble Valley, it's on the dividing line. Two-thirds of it are in the El Dorado Hills Fire Department District. The other third is in County Fire District. And, you know, El Dorado Hills Fire would probably be first in, given the location.
Yeah.
But so all those things have to be worked out.
okay, so I'm gonna jump, we're gonna go through these, and I know there are people with questions. I know there's people's question here. Did you want me to get into this so we have them all in front of us, or?
Again, one question is that our last meeting on a project with Parker, they're more concerned about talking about paint colors of the houses and where they're going to put them. Can we skip all that and really limit it to the environment, since they're limiting our time to review it? I don't have time to stay up and listen to the presentation of the paint colors of the houses they're going to be using, you know? And I mean, it's got to be just on the environment. And if we can ask that, or extend the time, if you want us to listen to your paint colors and chips and designs, give us more time.
I'm not opposed to multiple meetings. It's just, you have the challenge of the comment period, right? So if we can get that extended, I think maybe we could advocate for more. And I'm not opposed to doing a meeting the week before our comments are due, if we can add a second one in. But yeah, we'll ask.
Yeah, please, because I just.
So, and you'll recognize too that we try to be engaged in as much as that we want to allow a developer to come in and say what they want to say, that so we can ask the questions and get information. It's always a challenge. You know, we don't want to limit discussion, because if it's something they want to say, yeah, we're talking about the draft DIR. So let's talk about that.
But CEQA includes aesthetics.
Yeah.
But
well,
you don't have to dwell on that, right? That's not really the important place to spend time.
it's not a marketing meeting. How's that?
I think what was just brought up by Tim, there are certain elements that are the same for both projects. And I think if we ask them to focus in on those elements like traffic, you know, land use, how many buildings and things like that, and leave some, I'm going to call it the cosmetics, out of it, we might get more from that kind of a meeting than to just be all over the place, you know? And I think Tim brought that up, and I think that's a good idea.
Well, I'm going to show you Lime Rock so we can see the maps and the proximity to each other. So Lime Rock Valley, same thing, started about 2012. Their scoping meeting was in 2013. 800 dwelling units, so it's smaller. 50 acres public facility, recreational park, 335 acres of open space on 740 acres. So I know that Strong Associates are partners in this, but it's the Gallo family, the Wine family, and they've been at work on this in conjunction with Toronto Associates for quite a while. Same things, you know, they want to establish a development agreement, a specific plan for Lime Rock Valley, and a 60-day public comment period. If it's released on the 15th of May, comment period ends on the July 15th. So, so it's a much smaller, and this is their land use map. And again, on this screen here, it's hard to tell. We'll have this on the web. It is on the website. And I try to get a little closer. It's primarily low density residential with open space intertwined. There's a small village park in the center. And now let's get to, I don't know how hard this is. This is gonna be hard. So I'm gonna turn around and put my mouse on it here so I can turn around and point. For the purple element here, this is East Ridge, which is part of Valley View, which is adjacent. It's part of Blackstone and East Ridge. Valley View specifically. This is Marble Valley. Fast Lake Road's up here at the top. They're kind of the new Marble Valley Road, a parkway, however they're gonna call it, will come through the project, and you know, there's a route that goes through. Lime Rock Valley is over here. Cambridge Road is off this map, but it's close. So when you look at it, it's all south of 50. It's very hilly terrain, valley. Well, obviously, that's the names, but they're right up against each other. and then south of, Bass Lake Road, where we know that we already have some traffic concerns.
Deer Creek runs through the middle of it, if you know where Deer Creek is,
Yeah.
going down to the EID plant, so.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that there's a deer, in fact, right here is Deer Creek, the treatment plant is back in here. So they have facilities there, right there. So when we look at the general plan said, oh, development should happen where there's infrastructure. Well, there's a water treatment plant, there's infrastructure right there for that.
Yeah, but
is it adequate?
Read the report, it's only good for about 1,500, half the residents that they're proposing for Marble Valley.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen the Lime Rock ones, we don't know how that's addressed there.
So, yeah, and again, we don't know. So it's the draft, right? And we'll ask questions and they'll answer in the final. But so that's a little closer look. Again, west to east, East Ridge, East Ridge is in the west. East Ridge, Marble Valley, Lime Rock Valley. And there's elements in Cameron Park at the top to the north. Let's see. Oh, so that was it primarily on that, because we don't have the document yet. So what we need really, people that want to work. Even if you don't want to work, maybe we just make you do it. But it's a heavy lift. If we want to be comprehensive in how we look at this, and there might be questions that we ask and that we have concerns about that there are answers for that are common sense, and that maybe there are questions we ask that prompt a small change to improve the project in the environmental terms. But until we submit those comments, we ask and frequently if we're wrong on something, well, okay, we're wrong, but we want to know we're wrong. We want to know why, and we want to know what the appropriate answer is.
Just a clarifying question. Is this a draft EIR for the Rock Valley specific plan? Or is this a draft EIR for the project itself, like site maps and all that? Like, are we reviewing this from this perspective of, can they do a specific plan and, general plan amendments, that kind of?
With the specific plans, typically it provides that latitude later to, for the tentative maps to follow, which is always a struggle.
So the analysis is more for, can they make modifications to the general plan and add this specific plan with the intention of doing a residential project such as the one that they proposed kind of within this project? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Yeah, and for Marble Valley, it's residential and like almost 500,000 square feet of commercial as well.
Got it.
Probably a shopping center of some.
The rezoning is a big part of that below the general plan, because they're proposing like 35 different types of zones.
Yes.
So that gets very detailed too in terms of what's allowed in any given zoning.
And
Right.
and along with that is that a lot of projects do that, and they come up with their own naming structure and labeling structure for their land use in those zones inside the specific plan. I mean, you have the overall, zoning from the county, but the specific plan zoning allows them flexibility to, as long as the density doesn't increase, they can move parts around based on market conditions or what, they're able to finance or what, the market is demanding. So,
there's no overlap with the existing specific plans that are there.
no, they're brand new. They're independent of anything else that exists.
They're adjacent to existing specific plans,
Yes.
but not part of.
Yeah, you have obviously Valley View to the west. You're going off, man. You have Bass Lake Hills on the north side of Highway 50.
Cameron Park Estates is off of what?
Is that a specific plan?
I don't know. It was so many years ago.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I don't know, but that is a.
I was just thinking, because of the time crunch that we're under, we have so much of that research on just the generality of rezoning and what the general plan states as far as different zones that are existed for the work that we did on the central specific plan, that probably we can just take and apply towards this plan.
I'm sure the approach we take to it could be similar, but I think we really do need to be dialed in on these two in terms of they're proposing very specific things. And so the approach for a review, if there's considerations that we had found with Central, I think that obviously the densities are different and Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. Like I said, I've been trying to read this for a week, and I am struggling because I'm going back and forth. And we have another one coming next week. So I think
Yeah.
if anybody would like to contribute to this, even if you want to do your own thing and contribute your own comments, that's great. If you want to share them with us, we'll adopt them, look at them, and see if it makes sense for what everybody working on it is looking at. Like I said, for me, traffic is always a big deal. So I usually start there, and yeah, you know that about me. But
I think we also have to remember, this is Cameron Park Community Region. This is not El Dorado Hills Community Region.
It's a little
It's
different.
all within Supervisor Turnbow's district, but
yeah,
it is a different community region.
So.
They want to become part of El Dorado Hills community.
But that's not happened today. That's
No,
part of the proposal. So I
that's
agree.
one of the proposals. Yeah.
So
Right.
and then
Who knows?
yeah,
I think, John, you can put me down because for what I guess I was driving at is what we really explored in the central plan was the overarching theme that if you establish through these specific plans a mechanism to alter the general plan or to rezone at the county level, that can be a really dangerous precedent to establish. And so that's kind of what I was saying, not necessarily like don't go into the specifics of this plan, but there was some overarching requests that I think would set the stage for future, possibly even greenlighting, being able to do the central plan, that we should pay attention to. And I think those were the primary focuses that we were looking at is what can you do to amend a general plan? What can you do to establish a specific plan? And how do you align the consistencies between the two? And there's some good research in what we did before.
So one of the statistics that need to be understood is the general plan is probably amended at least 2 or 3 times a year. And that is within the general plan. There are amendments.
Sometimes they're minor.
They're minor, typically, right?
Yeah.
Because most of it comes as new state law requirements. So we have to amend the general plan to be consistent. But some of the amendments that have been done in the past is in town center apartments were not state driven. They were focused on what kind of density, multifamily density, does it take to make that project successful versus something that's going to fail.
Yeah.
And so that was a unique general plan amendment. But provisions for general plan amendments are part of the general plan. People seem to think the general plan is solid since 2004 with no changes, and that's just not realistic. At least 3 or 4 times a year is typically updated.
Yeah. So the thing.
Definitely. But there was definitely things that Parker was doing that went back to their lawsuit that was in the late 90s that caused us to not have a general plan in place because they were taking certain leaps and bounds and amendments that you shouldn't be doing procedurally. And that's more what I'm talking about.
1998 general plan, all the lawsuits and everything else. Yes. Yeah.
So, and correct me, I hope I'm not wrong. Are there specific plans anyplace else in the county other than El Dorado Hills? I don't think there are. There might be in the city of Placerville. There might be in the city of Lake Tahoe. But in the county, I think the only specific plans that exist
I don't know.
recently,
Today,
in the last 30 years, it's El Dorado
I'm
Hills.
not aware of any, but there may have been some.
Okay.
I mean, some of the
So,
stuff out there, Missouri Flat Road and stuff, may have had a specific plan at some point, years ago.
Yeah, so this is where development is focused, and the general plan says it is focused in community regions primarily and Highway 50. So specific plans, I'm looking at the map that's in front of me right now. I see Carson Creek specific plan. I see the Valley View specific plan. I see Bass Lake Hill specific plan. Obviously, Serrano and Town Center are part of the El Dorado Hills specific plan from 1988/89. So Promontory specific plan. I mean, there's a lot of specific plans that have been done over the last 30 years, 40 years.
El Dorado Hills Northwest specific.
That's right. Yeah. So, so it's not something that we haven't had done today, but that is the scope of these projects are significantly larger than a lot of the ones we've seen. Carson Creek's pretty big, but so we do need help doing this. If there's something you'd like to do, I will remind everybody, when we look at a project, we got to be neutral when we're looking at it. If I don't like it, that doesn't matter. I got to look at what the environmentalist says, and that's what we're making our comments on. And you don't have to like a project to do the review, but you got to approach it in a neutral fashion, which is hard for John Reslier. But
I'm leaving now.
okay, thank you. I drove them away. Okay, now we lost one.
I ran out of energy.
So, but we appreciate anything, and I'll be sending you emails, anything that anybody's wanting to contribute, even if you think it's minor. We don't think it's minor if you want to send us a paragraph or 10 pages. We're looking forward to being able to do that. We will reach back out to the developer to see what we can do for timeline on the comment period and to see what we can do to separate these as we do our initial reviews and have the presentations.
Yeah, and again, we do need help, guys. It's,
Thank you, Jeff.
Again, it's a lot of papers, a lot of pages to read. We can't have 4 or 5 people doing it because we're not going to be able to get it completely done. I just, we'll have to pick and prioritize what we can focus on. The typical things that attract, air quality, construction noise, traffic, water and utilities. But some of the other stuff, and I'm not saying that they're not as important, but they may not affect as many people or have as great a effect on the quality of life for the existing residents.
So
remember, the planning commission hearing is going to be probably 2 months after the comments are all taken in on the specific plan that's there, right, on the EIR. And so there's a little bit of time frame to go back and look at the things, because those elements can still be brought up at the planning commission hearing from the standpoint, if they're tied to a CEQA comment that was made, there's perfect opportunity to comment on further and add additional analysis. So it's not over when this deadline happens. That's just the start of that formal public exchange process, right?
Yeah, but we want to get it on. We want to get it on the record, because if you don't raise it early enough, you may not be able to raise it later on.
But what I've found is it's pretty easy to go through and pick out the standard things that are always on there, right? Like, show me the transportation plan that shows that circulation is going to be accommodated. What is the net level of service provided in these roadways? What is the noise factors? I mean, there's standard stuff that typically has to be in there. It's the nuances that are tougher to find typically.
Yeah, and again, as I was talking about being neutral, I haven't read the whole thing. This could be a fabulous project. It might need some changes, right, that we would provide that comment on. So I'm hoping it is a fabulous project, and I'm hoping the mitigation is in place, and I'm hoping the impacts aren't bad for our community, but we don't know until we do it.
I got to tell you, the park they propose, the old quarry site, which is now a lake, they're proposing a 21 to 22 acre lake and picnic areas. I mean, in and of itself, that looks.
They got a community park, first part, all the way down the other end. You come in off of Cambridge, basically.
I mean,
and it's a big social gathering area, and there's a little commercial center. I mean, that's where their vineyard is.
Yeah.
For presumably the wine. That was
the wine
up
tasting
front to start out with,
yeah.
and now it's clear back in the back. So it's got a lot of features to it that people need to understand. Some of them are beneficial to the community, in my opinion, and some of them obviously create impacts.
Yeah.
So what do you do to mitigate it?
And obviously, and again, some of them, and if you read the reports, and again, like John, I'm a couple hundred pages into it, but are the impacts mitigatable? How can they mitigate the impacts? And a lot they've identified right up front. A lot of the impacts are not mitigatable.
Right.
Yeah.
They are not
Significant.
Air quality is the one that can't be mitigated no matter what you do in our area.
Yeah.
Right. Significant but unavoidable.
Yeah, significant, unavoidable. But they call it out, and then, the project could still be approved even with those impacts. So, go ahead.
But John, because I mean, if we go back to the other specific plans too that get approved, I mean, we were supposed to have several golf courses pursuant to the El Dorado Hills specific plan that never materialized. And so I think if we're at the specific plan phase, how much of what's put into this do we really want to spend a ton of time on? Because they can modify when they go to build, which I think was the point earlier raised when and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting who made the comment, but about, holding the developers to certain conditions when they actually go forward and build projects.
Yeah, and that's true. And that's the idea of the specific plan, is that it provides that latitude to meet market demand or changing conditions so that they can ask specific plans like the general plan can be amended. So, that's why the second public golf course did not happen, because obviously they said the market was not what they had anticipated in 1988/89. When you got to it in 96 7 or 8, I think is when.
When those things happened, that time frame, discretion of the planning director was far greater than it is now.
Well, yeah.
They had some authority to do things that were just wrong, the way it was, until people recognized what it did. So those have changed at the county level, but conditions of approval that are typically put on by staff, and then obviously the planning commission reviews those, and typically we'll have 2 or 3 additional ones or more that they suggest. That's the things that have got to go with that. But the difficulty with conditions of approval is enforcement. Like everything around here is enforcement. Who do you pay to enforce all that stuff? It's supposed to be reviewed by the planning department on an annual basis. Well, typically they don't have the time to do that. They're chasing other things, right?
Yeah.
They're doing the next deal.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So, Linda, you ready?
I do have a question on this. So in 1998, it was 398 lots that were approved as the master plan. So what I'm reading is they did nothing with that. And now they're revising it and expanding it, but still on those same parcels.
They're revoking it, aren't they? That specific.
Well,
plan?
what was the language sorry, I'll go backwards in time here.
I think
That was what I was trying to figure out, is that basically is this making
wiping that out
okay.
and starting all.
I don't think they would ever give up that entitlement.
No.
Not the entitlement.
It's, so the language,
They're entitled to 398 acres.
Yeah,
398 homes on their property, right?
Right.
I don't think they're gonna give up their entitlement. They're basically revising that.
So that's the language from 2013.
For the proposed plan that
Yeah.
they've got snapped.
Proposed project is an amendment to the previously approved Marble Valley Master Plan 1998.
So did they build any of the 398 lots? Okay, so
There
for
is
the
a-
last
there is a
25
residence out there,
years,
I think, but it's not something they built. It's been there a
So
while.
yeah, so like I
25
said, it
years
was,
they did nothing,
Yeah.
and now it's,
so it was
yeah.
like I described it. It was it was finally approved in 1998. I remember when I was here in 94, 95, that they were working on it, got approved, and then in 2000, Swan Associates purchased the property because they were running out of custom home sites. So, sort of here. Great.
So they bought the property after that 1998 specific plan?
About in 2000, yeah. So, yeah.
There was a lot going on at that late 1990s, early 2000s.
One or two things, yeah.
And you go back and look at number of building starts in the county's map, and we presented that from any number of perspectives. We were approving something like 2,300 homes a year, right before the break that happened, right before the 2007, 2008 crash, right? Right before that, the numbers started dropping off. But at the rate that the building was happening in El Dorado County, the forecast was we're going to run out of properties and parcels. So they started grabbing up land, right? That's the same time.
Yeah.
The other specific plans, Valley View and Carson Creek and a lot of others got processed. Everybody was staging.
It was right up till about 2000, and then, and then it was an attempt to build out, but obviously the recession got in the way of that. Yeah, in my recollection, and I know the lines were different on the census maps between the 90s. So I think when we got here, at the time, it was between like 9 to 13, depending on how those lines were drawn, 1,000 residents. That's 95. 2000, we had 20,000 residents, 18 something. And in 2010, we had 40 something thousand, and now we have 50 something thousand. So that period was explosive. And I think it drives a lot of the concerns that people have about, well, I bought here because I wanted to live in rural. Well, this is a suburban community at this point, right? So, but where we're at now, that is the interface with rural. So, but they own the property, they have the right to ask to entertain this. So, is there any more questions in the room? Because I know that I gotta get somebody here, and my clock is getting late. Okay, so I'm gonna ask Marty. You have been waiting forever and a day. Would you like to unmute?
Yeah. How you guys doing? Can you guys hear
Pretty
me?
good.
Good. So I got this in the mail the other day, and I went to their meeting up here in Cameron Park back in 2013. A few questions that I have is, first of all, looking at that map, and I know they've done a study for the fire portion of this, but looking at this map, there's 2 exits to get out. One coming from Bass Lake Road and one going to Cambridge. Now, with all the fires that we've had in the last couple of years, 4 or 5 years, do you actually think 2 roads is gonna be significant to get all these people out of there if there is a disaster? One. Number two, I know this is part of El Dorado Hills, but it backs up to Cameron Park. Okay? And I live in Cameron Park. So what I'm looking at here is 3 interchanges, I'm looking at Bass Lake Road, Cambridge, and Cameron Park Drive would all have to, the exits and entrances would all have to be modified. Is that in the proposal?
I'll be honest, I have not got to the transportation appendices yet, but obviously it's something that we will raise. That's one of our, I mean, that's where I start with traffic. So
exactly, and I'm looking at 3 to 4 years of nothing but traffic.
Yeah.
With construction work.
It
Okay, now
it does say in the report that they recognize that there will be temporary, immediate changes need to be made to Bass Lake and Cambridge. But I haven't got far enough to read what permanent changes will need to be made, and I have not seen anything that addresses Cameron Park.
Yeah, so for Cameron Park, Marty, I know that, and you know, you're in Cameron Park, and I'm close to Cameron Park. I'm off Bass Lake, so there's been discussion about the interchange at Cameron Park, and I think a couple of years ago there were like 3 or 4 or 6 plans proposed, and I know the county was looking at what they could do. The reality is there's no money to fund any of that. One of the proposals was a $70 million project, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, which will be a $100-something million project in 5 or 6 more years. And again, there's no development, so there's no funding. There's not enough impact fees going into the capital improvement program. So how do you do that? And then the other part with the interchanges, as you're correctly addressing, is that interchanges, that's a state highway.
Right.
So Caltrans has to be part of that discussion. For Bass Lake specifically, the Bass Lake Hills specific plan, when they hit a certain trigger of development in the Bass Lake Hills specific plan, they are required to fund the design and study for the Bass Lake Road interchange, but I don't believe that they are required to fund the actual construction and improvement of the interchange. And that's multiple developers, you know, in that specific plan, which is, you know, there's an opportunity for more developers to come in, buy land, and do other things in there. So yeah, the reality is, as construction occurs, and you're describing like 4 years, it could be 10 years, right? Because
it could be.
Yeah.
Look how long it took El Dorado Hills to you know, when they did the Blue Shield building. That went on for what, 10 years?
Well, it took forever to get Silva Valley done as well.
Exactly.
And we're already talking about the second phase for El Dorado Hills Boulevard, about
Right.
the changes we just discussed earlier this evening. So you're correct in identifying that. Now, here's a challenge for us. I would love to ask you to work on this. Unfortunately, if you're a Cameron Park resident, you couldn't be a voting member of APAC. But
Right.
we would love to have your input. If there's something you've read and you want to contribute, literally a paragraph, we'll take it. So, and tell a friend.
Well, as soon as I got this, I posted something on Nextdoor, and I got a lot of Cameron Park people involved. They knew about this meeting. They know that they're supposed to go down to the libraries and pick up the information so they can get educated on it. I think most of what the people are concerned about is, I know how these construction projects go, and I know that these developers, you know, when they start building projects like this, there's always a bond that gets thrown on our property taxes. And these bonds that, as all you guys know about, they never go away. And we just don't want to be hit with a bond on our property taxes for a project that is for El Dorado Hills. But that other Lime Rock backs up into Cameron Park, and I'm sure that's going to impact the Cameron Park residents.
Well, yeah, you know, the proximity of both of them, it's going to impact both our communities cumulatively, right? Because we are good neighbors. We're next to each other, But on the bond issues, they're typically limited to the new properties and not to existing properties unless there's a vote and you get an opportunity to,
Prop 218
yeah.
requires votes on all.
well,
these
yeah,
small
for a
ones.
CFD or Mello-Roos,
Right.
you would, you and your neighbors would, and
But
for
I
a
think maybe
CFD
Marty's
is like
talking about
2/3.
like a zone of benefit type thing
Yeah.
where
Okay, that's
a
different.
zone of benefit, Marty, it's not a bond per se, but something is done to improve an area.
Or an
and-
LLAD or CFD or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and basically, existing people get the benefit of the improvements that are made, and therefore it's felt that existing people should also pay a portion of it. But that's a different discussion for a different
I
time.
believe they have a
Right,
vote on
but
that,
I, you know,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I know, and I've lived here for 24 years, and you know the whole saying, you move up the hill to get away from all the traffic, okay? And then, you know, you let one person come in, the next thing you know, you got the big box stores moving up, and then here we are, we're Folsom, okay, with nothing but traffic on the weekends, and nobody wants to leave their house to sit in traffic during the weekend. So,
Marty, again, you're welcome to help us through.
more than
APAC,
glad to.
But again, I'm Tim White, John Davies, the chair, but you can also make your own individual comments into the Department of Planning. Or if you have a group together, Cameron Park citizens concerned about Marble Valley, you can get a group together and make comments through that group.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm a negative Nelly here on this project, but I mean, is this something that is gonna go through?
well, I don't have a crystal ball. You know, a lot of projects get approved. A few don't, so.
Well, I'll say very few projects get approved as proposed.
Proposed, yeah.
They modify a lot by the time they get
Yeah.
approved. So.
And truthfully, to a lot of the development projects, Serrano specifically, you know, they talked about close to 6,000 houses, and they're going to top out at 4,700 after 40 years. So they ask for the moon, and then they build to what the market will allow.
And
What's that email to send questions into?
You're going to make me look for that. For Marble Valley, oh gosh, where'd it go? It'll be on our website, but it's VMVSP, so Village Marble Valley Specific Plan at edc.gov.us. And if you want to look at the APAC website, I believe it's on there as well.
Okay, yeah, I'll put something out there and see if we can get a group together here in Cameron Park to put some questions together and send them to you guys. I know one person was mentioning, you know, that's part of wetlands, and did they do the environmental impact on the wetlands in that area?
yes, they did. And if, you know, CEQA requires that draft environmental impact report talk about alternatives, and the most environmentally sensitive alternative to this Marble Valley plan is no project at all. Leave it like it is. But they have 3 other alternatives that are presented and discussed in the draft EIR. One was a reduced wetlands impact. So don't build around the wetlands or don't do anything with the wetland area. The second one is reduced development overall. Instead of 3,200 or whatever, do half that, 1,600. And the last one was minimize the impact on the oaks that are on the area. So take a look at those. Maybe one of those is a superior project, and maybe people could say, yeah, I'd rather have one of those other alternatives than the full one that the developer is presenting and requesting approval for.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time and letting me speak. And you guys have a great night.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Many times in the past, we prefer alternative project. It
Yeah.
goes nowhere. Let me
Yeah,
tell
I
you
know.
how
Well,
it's treated.
You gotta,
It's required by CEQA.
it's required, but and some of them make some
Maybe.
sense.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, it doesn't make sense
Environmental
from the developer viewpoint, but, and again, they sometimes throw out something to see what'll stick against the wall. But, at least they are alternatives that other people might not think
I
of.
mean, I like the process. I've just never seen it be successful in El Dorado County. Maybe it can be.
Well,
Okay. Well,
let's swing for the fences.
yeah.
Hey, let's take one more comment online and we're way over again. So, Will, you should be able to unmute. Are you ready to let us hear you?
Hey, it's Will's partner, Naomi, but
Hi, Naomi.
Hi. Yeah, I think we chatted just briefly online. But Will's next to me. Will's got a background in biology, but I've been an air quality engineer for 18 years.
Oh yeah.
I've defended and I've fought against. I've been an expert witness against things, for things, on behalf of clients, against people, for the better part of my career. And there are some substantive analytical deficiencies actually in the EIR. And I'm surprised because ICF is a pretty reputable firm, but there are some substantive issues and absences that are notably absent. Some of those being emissions from passenger vehicles that are going to result as a part of the project. They use the wrong analysis wrong analysis tool for everything except for construction emissions. Some ways that you could objectively look at these projects are, did the developer and did the lead agency actually perform the appropriate analyses to be able to provide a full picture of the health risks to the public? One such additional health risk that's a little concerning is the fact that they're going to be constructing that the elementary school while the middle school is in operation. So there's going to be kids that are going to be exposed to diesel particulate matter, which is a carcinogen and a known carcinogen, and it is more developmentally intense when children are young, for 6 years until project construction is complete. So, I mean, there are a number of deficiencies in the analysis. It took me a couple of hours just to breeze through the air quality section because most of it is just model outputs from a model that we called CalEMod. So I'd be happy to take a glance at the air quality section and help you out substantively, because I think that when we've got the public and you've got 3,000 pages of stuff, and to your point, over 100 gigs or megs, 100 megs, I guess, worth of stuff, it can be overwhelming, and you get a lot of people who don't like the project just, on its face. But when it comes to the technical analyses, that's really where you can actually combat some of these things. And I know you like traffic. That is where a lot of these analyses start, particularly with appropriate vehicle miles traveled and vehicle counts. But really, we're in a non-attainment area for ozone. And so ozone precursors are going to be significant and unmitigatable for the project. And the project alternatives don't seem to be a lot better. So I think that, substantively got to put some real bones and some real meat behind this to be able to combat it and suggest one of the project alternatives and mitigations that are going to be best for the entire community. And to be candid, the entire Sacramento Metro Air Basin, because Sacramento Metro Air Quality Management District also has a vested interest in this project, and all of the other projects that have been developing that have made it even more difficult for this region to attain conformance with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. I mean, it is ridiculous that we keep developing without concern for public health. And so, I think that putting some substantive meat behind all of this is really going to help folks. And I'd like to be a part of it. I know my partner and I moved out here to try to escape some of the Folsom creep. And so objectively, I can look at it. Of course, I have, subjective opinion here, but, there's some objective reality here that I think has to be dealt with. And I think that, the more folks that you have who can look at those things in an objective manner, the better.
Well, that's great. Naomi, that's very educational for us, and we love to hear that there's support in the community for people looking at the projects. What we've done in the past too is that if somebody presents their own sort of documentation and they want to share it with us, even if they don't want to participate as a member of APAC or as a member of our review, that we would ask if we can incorporate by reference anything that you prepared, and we allow other people incorporate what we do as well. So we'd love to be engaged with you in this, and if you have anything you want to prepare, I think we're on next quarter together, but if you want to send me a message, my email is obviously on the on the agendas. We have a master email on our website, info@edhapac.org. So anything you would be willing to share and contribute, and if there's something we can contribute, you know, like we said, we are all neighbors and we're all El Dorado County. We're not incorporated as a city. So we'd love to have that opportunity to engage with everyone. So.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So we got to get moving, guys. Just briefly, we're moving on. It's technically it's right up against El Dorado Hills. It's Cameron Park Rescue. The Cameron Park Design Review Committee is looking at this on May 20th. It's a pre-application for the Bass Lake Family Apartments, and they're specifically working under the auspices of Senate Bill 330, Assembly Bill 2011. 100% affordable housing project, 126 apartments, 124 of which are apartments reserved for low-income households with 2 manager units. It's on 5 acres, which when I did my math, it's just right at like 23.7 dwelling units per acre. So it's real close.
24 is the max.
Yeah, 24 is current max. So 5 buildings, 122,000 square feet, 100% affordable and eligible for a density bonus concession state law. So they're requesting. The unique thing about this is it's a commercially zoned property. It's I think it's commercial professional office and general. The plan is just commercial. So what they're proposing is mixed use is allowed. Apartments, multifamily is allowed in the commercial zones. Most of the commercial zones, not the high intensity or the. Anyway, so in this standard commercial zone, it's allowed mixed use. You could do, residential. They're asking for a concession to allow 0% commercial floor area in their commercial zone and only build the not so mixed use, the apartment complex. So typically it's required you have to have 30% ground floor, the ratio, you have to have 30% commercial to 70% other of allowed uses in that zone. So it's eligible for an 80% density bonus. They're requesting about a 25% density bonus. It includes, landscaping, 170 parking spaces, and the commercial zoning on here. So let's look at where it's at. So here's that. This is the county's new project website where you do the geographical. So this is great to look at. It's technically way the heck up here at the top of Bass Lake Road at Green Valley. And it's this parcel that's been zoned commercial forever. Green Valley Cemetery is on the north side. Green Valley Elementary School is to the south. It's along Foxmore Drive. What is the name of that apartment? Sierra something is the apartment complex across the street. So it would be the access would be along Foxmore Lane at Bass Lake Road. See if I can get a little closer. There it is. So a lot of oak trees, but those would be going away. They will preserve some. And I'll show you their land use plan here, but the Green Valley Elementary is right here. I will point out right now that the bus drop zone for Green Valley Elementary is Foxmore Lane. And having gone through, I can't how many years we were there, that's a tough nut to crack. Here's sort of their what they have suggested for the building alignment. Obviously, this building to the west is right up against an existing property. They'll have a small amount of landscaping there. They have, I think, just the one driveway, if I'm remembering correctly, that goes onto Foxmore, and it's directly across the gate to the school. There's 2 gates there. So that's a little closer look. You can look at it there. So this is not in El Dorado Hills, but we have offered findings for projects in rescuing Green Valley area, Cameron Park. If it's adjacent to El Dorado Hills, we've done it. So there's precious little information on this. And I just went past it. So there's a TAC meeting. I want to say, if I can remember, TAC meetings on June 3rd. We'll probably provide some comment on this. There's nothing meaningful that we can really do based off of what's presented, other than to make some observations. And then the Cameron Park Design Review Committee will be looking at it on May 20th. And I imagine the applicant will probably be there for that meeting. And that's typically, they do it in the board chambers now, I think, for Cameron Park. They have. I'm not sure if it's consistently there. Sure. They used to meet at the fire station on Country Club, which made it easy to attend. Yeah. So, but if they do use county facilities now because they are a board of supervisors appointed review committee, the design review. So I will reach out to the chair of that committee and see if they have any concerns that, you know, that if he specifically, Brown Act, they can't talk to each other outside of the meeting. But again, we will probably provide some comment on this. You know, if it meets a need and the mitigations can be, you know, mitigated, if the impacts can be mitigated, then maybe it's a good project. I'm, you know, on the face of it, I'm looking at the traffic, you know, because that's where I start always. And we'll do what we can. So I just wanted people to see that it's a pre-app at this point. And I mean,
I have one question though. That
yes.
said a TAC meeting. Does
TAC.
that mean not open to the public?
Yeah, and
Technical Advisory Committee
I
meeting.
know.
agencies. So what's unique is that we've snuck into a few recently because we get the invitations, and then we usually see the notice, right? We get notified that there is a TAC meeting. We're typically not invited. They've been doing most of them virtually.
Yeah.
Once in a while, we get an invitation. I know that I sent in for Green Valley. I'm sorry, Generations at Green Valley. Tim had an invite for, did you actually get a link? No, okay, so there's no link. So sometimes we're there and sometimes we're not. We can make comments to the TAC meeting though. And whether they do anything with that or not, they'll know that when it comes back as it proceeds, they'll say, we held a TAC meeting. These are the responses we got from agencies and those yahoos at APAC, right? So I think if, I know the planning staff is pretty open when we have questions or comments. They'll at least entertain them. I don't know that, you know, we were advisory, so.
You know, one of the things, John, I want to say that the supervisors get invited to this TAC meetings. We get an invite, but we're not allowed to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is really ridiculous. So anyway, I don't even know why they send an invite to us.
Well, you know, and to George's, Supervisor Turbo's point, I should use your title, I apologize. A lot of the District 2 stuff, we still don't get notifications on.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so we had seen an improvement last year. This year, maybe it's a little bit of a slide the other way, but we will ask. I typically see them posted and track it because I'm just weird. I go in and look and see what's coming up. But we will ask, and then we'll send comments when it's appropriate. I mean, it might not be very informed because there's not much there to this project, but we'll do our best. So, we're not going to do this tonight. I'm just going to let you know that the Community for Health and Independence, the AKT/UC Davis project that's conceptual right now, they had the J6 Board of Supervisors hearing in April, the end of April. And again, we talked about this a little bit. It's unique in that they're looking to annex Sacramento County, this side of this project, to the west of our county line into the city of Folsom. They had a presentation the same day they did the J6. They went from El Dorado County back to the city of Folsom. So 4,000 homes in Folsom technically, and 4,000 El Dorado Hills. But the focus is it's to provide. They said their focus is. Where is the description? Provide a residential development for healthy senior communities and residential housing for disabled residents, which sounds great. You know, nobody's against that. 4,000 residential units on each side of the county line. However, Latrobe School District is the school district, so I don't know. It's not a one-room schoolhouse, and Supervisor Turnbull will help us remember that school's on a well, and if that well's not working, they have to monitor it daily. They have to truck water in.
Yeah, it's 3 wells is what it is.
Thank
and
you.
what it is, they test them every day, and if they're not meet the standards and stuff, they shut the wells down and they have to truck water in.
So
They've identified a school site on the property.
However, the TAC meeting comments, and I'll show you.
They have water and everything else.
Yeah, but however, that school district, their TAC meeting comments were that they're not interested in the school site right now. So what do you do? So, and again, they're looking to annex into the city of Folsom because Sacramento County didn't have a lot of interest. It is sort of that urban sprawl that SACOG isn't interested in. I did a rough overlay from a satellite map with their land use map over this, but there were better documents in the staff presentation. Again, we looked at it, and when we did the measuring, and I want to say there were comments about that split. 20% of the housing is geared towards seniors and people with disabilities. 80% is essentially market rate housing. So, okay, but if that's what it takes to make that project work and provide that those what they're offering as the focus of it, what they're going to present. So, so SACOG had commented a little bit in Sacramento Bee editorial and said there's no need for this additional housing within the 6-county area. The new project, the project's new housing would not provide cheaper, lower affordable single-family housing in El Dorado County. And I believe that we borrowed comments from an APAC member. I want to identify you here. And that unless you want to, that's fine. It's not near any clinics, any highways or public transportation, surrounded by current undeveloped space and high-density single-family homes. And the research property, if it goes to UCD and Davis, has it, that project is not subject to state property tax. So the staff presentation suggested, they have these good maps that they presented for the supervisors to look at as they were hearing from the applicant. And with the zoning change would be just be a specific land basically. And again, here's the numbers on the split, the type of land use per acre, how many dwelling units, 4,300 dwelling units. And then the plan site, and we already have this on the APAC website, but you can, we'll post the slides as well. If anybody wants to, we're blazing through this as the hours late. And there's an opportunity for that connector road from Sacramento County in the west to come across this property and end up on Latrobe Road, which is something we talked about because, if that alleviates some, the circulation element in our community, we're selfish, we want to talk about us. If there's an improvement like for residents in Blackstone, Four Seasons Heritage, well, maybe, this is something that's good, right? We don't know until we see it. There's another road proposed that would be sort of like a rural parkway, I think they describe it, to the south to potentially connect to Latrobe. And so the planning staff had, after they had this presentation, the applicant did their presentation to the board. They said, so the next steps obviously is, you file formal documents for a general plan amendment, a specific plan adoption, a rezone request to, change the existing zoning, an environmental impact report, obviously to be consistent with CEQA. And there are a lot of elements of this that LAFCO, I'm sorry, we have a LAFCO commissioner sitting next to me tonight, so 2 technically.
Yeah.
Do some whispering. Yeah. Yes.
Two counties.
Yes.
What if one county says no?
That's my question. So I don't know. Would they go, okay, well, we'll do half a project and do it entirely in El Dorado County? We don't know, right? So, and then, they would possibly explore a development agreement. And then I think your point on this, John, was that a tentative map would help a lot in terms of informing people what this could look like for El Dorado County.
Right.
So yeah, but it would benefit us to have, it would inform us a little more. So TAC meeting, we talked about this. So the comments submitted to the TAC meeting were from CAL FIRE, the California Department of Transportation, the County Transportation Department, El Dorado Hills Fire Department, thank you, Chief Fields, and El Dorado Hills CSD, thank you, Jeff, who is actually sitting here with us tonight. LAFCO submitted comments, the Latrobe School District submitted comments, and the Agricultural Commission. And the Ag Commission is concerned about a specific part of our general plan. It's policy 8.1.22, talking about the livestock raising lands limited to that 40 acres, right? That's what it is now. Obviously, they're looking to change it. So Ag Commissioner made those comments. LAFCO talked about the need for annexation into EID, which would require a sphere of influence change as well. Annexation to El Dorado Hills Fire, but only for 2 specific parcels, and annexation into the CSD, which would require an amendment to the CSD's sphere of influence. And one of the parcels is already within that sphere of influence. So LAFCO also reminded that they're going to need environmental review for the LAFCO entitlement, the LAFCO process, and they encourage the applicant to start early and have one document prepared cumulatively as they move forward. And some of the things I identified was the water supply and the pumping and treatment facilities, water quality, wastewater, fire, emergency medical, park recreation, agriculture, open space, and the RHNA needs, regional housing needs allocation goals from SACOG and specifically for our sphere in El Dorado County. So, and the fire department pointed out, hey, it's a high fire hazard severity zone with a CAL FIRE state responsibility area. So they have to work on their plan for that. The project is currently identified an area of high or very high wildfire hazard, and it's in the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, which a lot of us as homeowners with insurance needs are understanding that that's problematic. So, so they also the fire department had commented that, you know, hey, that emergency water supply is critical, and it's not just that it's, you know, would help, it's required by law, so they have to look at that. So, and then what I found interesting is that I looked at the city of Folsom staff, just their presentation. They, you know, it's consistent with what they've done, the Folsom Plan area to the south, Folsom Ranch, you know, south of 50. They did identify that UC Davis, if they have that campus, it's not subject to any property tax. That it's consistent with several their general plan policies in terms of housing for future generations and for R&D land supply. And that would be the sort of the UC Davis thing. But that it's inconsistent with several of the city of Folsom's general plan policies, including the SACOG growth principles. It's not an urban area. It's, you know, undeveloped. It's not consistent with their habitat general plan policy. It's not consistent with their vehicle miles traveled or their transit services. And then they identified a lot of their transportation plan, their active transportation plans for walking, biking, you know, how they're contributing to planned transportation improvements for their fair share for the impacts. And then they're concerned about the major roads in the project narrative. They exit on project boundaries that haven't really been studied. So they, you know, obviously they'd have to do it. And it's outside the urban service boundary, so it impacts their water. They believe that they would not be able to facilitate the wastewater service there, is what they don't have the capacity. So they're talking about Sacramento Sewer would have to provide it essentially to analyze the capacity and annex into the area, which it sounds like Sacramento County is not interested. The potable water supply, solid waste reduction, recycling, and you know, they have to have, as a city, they have to have, you know, the plans for all these things, so they have to be consistent with what they plan for and have their policies. So they need to explore that. They have a specific for their annexation that, you know, they have to pay for required improvements and ongoing maintenance to serve the project. They have to pay for offsite improvements, and this is just the city. So I thought their approach was a little different than the county. The county's approach was consistent with how we do it here, right? But they asked, the city is a different animal. So also because if they annex into the city, then their city would be responsible for revenue neutrality agreement with the county of Sacramento, meaning they'd have to divorce paperwork essentially. So, and it just, you know, they had a lot of things. I just, the hour's late, so we're going to leave. But I just thought it was interesting that some of the items that staff prepared were consistent, and some of them a little different approach. So nothing to talk about. It's just a pre-application. If it comes to fruition, obviously we'll be looking at it. So as we close out here tonight, I'm not going to take any, you know, so if you want to submit questions ahead of our meetings, you can email to the email address here, edhapaccomment@gmail.com. And then our next meeting is June 12th, and our next meeting is solely, so far, Marble Valley and Lime Rock. So, and I will also share that in July, Rafael Martinez is talking about having a transportation-only meeting, less of me, more of someone else, good thing. And then in August, is it August, right? August. Generations is asked to come and present in August. So we have a full 3 months. So nobody gets the summer off. But I want to thank everybody for sticking around for a 2.5-hour meeting again. And maybe our big meeting next month won't be 2.5 hours. So, but we will see. So I think we're adjourned. I want to thank everyone for sticking around, for coming out, and questions or comments, we have our email addresses on there and our main email address. Just send them in, and we take any help that you're willing to offer or any questions you have to offer. So now I'm going to stop all this. Where can I do that from here? Yeah, but where's the record button? Stop. Thank you.